Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Portillo, and for my Special Populations project, I'll be talking about chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE for short. We will be discussing what exactly CTE is, digging down to the roots of where it all started, how we can diagnose CTE. Spoiler, the answer will scare you, especially if you've played any type of sport that has heavy head to head contact, how we can prevent CTE, and much more. So grab your popcorn and let's dig in. So, what exactly is CTE? CTE is a brain condition from taking multiple hits to the head. It first got discovered in the 1920s, where it originated in boxing, where they used to call it punch drunk syndrome or dementia ballistica. CTE is also considered a version of Alzheimer's. The difference between the two is that in CTE, symptoms usually start around 30s or 40s, whereas Alzheimer's they start later around 65. Alzheimer's also starts off with memory loss, whereas CTE starts with problems with judgment, reasoning, problem solving, impulse control, and aggression. CTE is mostly common in athletes, sports like football, hockey, and soccer, or any sport where there's high risk of concussions. Besides sports, it is also known to happen to military personnel, where it can sometimes get misdiagnosed for PTSD. So, diagnosing CTE. One of the biggest complications for CTE is that, well, it can't be diagnosed until after your death or demise, but you can show potential symptoms. Why can you only see it during death? The only way to prove that someone has CTE is to look at the brain tissue. MRI and CAT scans cannot detect any type of bleeding or differences in the brain, so it's physically impossible to see CTE while someone is alive. Some of the potential symptoms that can be found if you have CTE are thinking and memory difficulties, personality changes, and behavioral changes, including aggression and depression. Symptoms for CTE can begin during a player's career, months after their career, years, and even decades after the last incident. It is difficult to link CTE with symptoms because the symptoms can have multiple links to different diagnoses. So you could have all symptoms for CTE, but actually have post-concussion syndrome, which are completely different. Now, how can we prevent CTE? Could we ban sports for kids under 10? CTE has been around for decades, but it wasn't until recent as it's gotten more popular, meaning even parents are starting to learn about it, raising one of the biggest questions. Should sports like football, hockey, or soccer be banned for kids under 10? Parents are scared for the children will develop CTE if they let their kids play at such a young age. Most cases have come from retired athletes, but there have been multiple cases where teenagers who passed were linked to CTE. So researchers do think that a child may not get CTE when they play at a young age, but they have a chance of getting it years away. If a child has multiple concussions, then CTE could very easily come into play. Now, what about the equipment? Even with the advancements we've made with making equipment safe, head trauma is tricky because there isn't anything that can prevent the inside of someone's brain from shaking back and forth, which is what causes concussions. The only way to prevent CTE is by avoiding the amount of head trauma. Difficult to avoid it, but we can implement better concussion protocols for athletes, meaning not let them return to the playing field too soon after receiving a concussion. Predisposing characteristics. When it comes to predisposing characteristics, race, gender, religion, or other characteristics do not play a part in CTE except for age. Although it is a fairly new discovery, there has been enough CTE cases to prove that it is very rare for someone at a young age, meaning a child of 6 to 10 years old, to have symptoms for CTE. It happens from years of taking hits to the head. At the earliest a child will experience symptoms for is during their adolescence, meaning around 15 or 16. But school districts have been making concussions a big priority in sports, which will hopefully reduce the amount of CTE victims at such a young age. Most cases come from pro players who have been playing for years, and even more after retirement. Around age 30 is when most cases have started to experience personality changes. Enabling and need characteristics. Again, CTE has no cure. So, how do you get someone help that has CTE if there's no resources available to help? When it comes to treating players with CTE, there are multiple things to watch out for. First step is the athlete has to make the move of going to see a doctor if they think they have CTE symptoms, which many people do not know if they have it or not. So the athlete goes to get help. What does the doctor do? Nothing. All the physician will be able to do is act as a gatekeeper and send the athlete to secondary care, as such as a neurologist. From there, they will need to figure out exactly what his symptoms are and most likely give him medicine for each individual symptom. For example, prescribing antidepressants for the anxiety or risperidone to help with the aggression. What athletes with CTE need are support groups to help them cope with the symptoms, people who they can relate to, be comfortable around. Although there are already some support groups, the amount of people with CTE is growing at a fast rate where there's not enough support groups around the United States. As far as preventing CTE, there needs to be more precaution on letting players back on the field too soon after receiving a concussion. Here are two recent victims of CTE: Aaron Hernandez and Tyler Helinski. Aaron Hernandez was an NFL tight end. He played for the University of Florida for 3 seasons, where he got drafted to the Patriots in 2010, where he played for an additional 3 years before getting arrested. After he committed suicide in 2017, his brain was sent to get diagnosed. They found that he had CTE. Not only discovered that he had CTE, but he had the worst and most extreme case of CTE for someone at his age. One of the examiners said his brain looked like it belonged to a 65-year-old boxer. Tyler Helinski was a college quarterback for Washington State University. He committed suicide in early 2018. His family donated his brain to be researched on, where they also found a connection to CTE. Tyler was only 21 when he died. They found that he had stage 1 CTE, which is the least severe stage, but that just shows you how serious CTE can be. Everyone who knew him said they had no reason to suspect suicidal thoughts, that he was always a happy, positive person to be around. Both players have a different story. Both are young with different levels of CTE, but in the end, they are both victims of committing suicide. Closing questions. First one: CTE is a new discovery with information being learned at a fast rate. Besides support groups, what are some other enabling or need characteristics that a CTE patient might need? And two, I talked about how some parents have pulled their kids from playing contact sports at such a young age due to fearing their child will develop CTE. Do you think that there are enough cases and research to prove that young children can develop CTE? What are your thoughts on it as if you were a parent? And here are my references. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening.